Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you with another deck profile, and for today's video we're going to be doing an updated Lightsworn list. Now, compared to the previous one, this one will not showcase the Fiendsmith engine, even though I'm still of the opinion that it's the best way to play Lightsworn. I just wanted to try something a little bit different, so I opted to just cut that entirely and then go all in on the other supplementary engines that we will be playing, such as the Horus and like the Bystial engine. So, with that out of the way, let's jump straight into it. As always, we're going to be starting off with the monster lineup first, and we're of course going to be playing 3 Lightsworn Dragonling. This card, when it comes to the pure Lightsworn deck, is probably one of, if not the best cards in the entire deck, as long as you have a Lightsworn monster in your graveyard, which shouldn't be too hard to do. You can special summon this card for free, so it's already an extender, and as if that wasn't already good enough, when this card is special summoned, you can foolish any Lightsworn card from your deck to the graveyard. So you can send Felis to synchro summon, you can send Wulf to exceed or link with, you can send Lightsworn Aegis if you just want something to be able to negate your opponent's stuff. Point is, this card, you gotta play it at 3 whenever you're playing a pure Lightsworn deck. Then, to go with our 3 Dragonlings, we're playing 3 Weiss, Lightsworn Archfiend. Also, another really strong card, as it takes your bricks, such as Wulf and Felis, that you would normally never want in your hand, and then it puts them on top of the deck. You get a free special summon off of this card, and then you get to mill 2 cards, including the Wulf or Felis that you happen to put on top. And it doesn't even have to be those 2, right? You can take something like a Dragonling, for example, put it on the top of your deck, mill it, just to be able to get like a free special summon off, and then you'd still trigger Dragonling's effect to add either Punishment or Judgment Dragon or whatever. But typically you want to save these for your bricks, right? But yeah, 3 ways, got to play it all as well. And then for the 2 ofs, this is where the bricks come in, being the 2 Felis Lightsworn Archer and the 2 Wulf Lightsworn Beasts. As is the nature of Lightsworns, you're going to draw these cards no matter what, so having something like Weiss just to be able to put them on top and alleviate the pain a little bit is always going to be greatly appreciated. As for like the ratios, I think they're fine at this, especially because this is a 40 card deck. Maybe you could like consider taking down 1 Wulf and then adding a 3rd Felis, just because Felis being a tuner does actually matter a lot for being able to access our synchro monsters, obviously, but for now I think this ratio is perfectly fine. And then for the 1 of Lightsworn monster that we're playing, the 1 Raiden Hand of the Lightsworn, we basically never use our normal summons, so if for whatever reason we have this card in our hand, or we search it at some point or draw into it, we can just bring this card out, mill 2 more cards, and then, much like Weiss, it also happens to be a level 4 tuner monster. So yeah, the cards that this card unlocks is pretty solid. And then that's it for the Lightsworn monsters, but we are playing one of the boss monsters, being Punishment Dragon. I'm still going with Punishment Dragon over Judgment Dragon, just because this one allows us to basically completely demolish Malice if the matchup comes up, which it probably will. And then with that, that's the Lightsworn engine as a whole, and now we can get to the other aspects of the deck that help the deck actually function. So first off, we're playing 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Now, as far as Ash Blossom is concerned, it doesn't actually help the deck, right? It doesn't help us forward our game plan or anything like that. But what it does do is it stops all the mole charmies from just completely demolishing us, because we basically lose to every single one, right? Perulia, Meows, Fuelos, we cannot play if either of those 3 resolve. So having something like Ash Blossom that can potentially save us is going to be greatly appreciated. And then we can get to the Bystial portion. And like I said earlier, we basically are going to go all in for the most part. And we're playing the 3 Bystial Lubellions, 3 Bystial Druiswurms, 1 Bystial Baldrake, 1 Bystial Saronir, and 1 Bystial Magnamhut. So normally when I do a deck profile like this, you'd see me playing something such as 3 Lubellion with 1 Mag, 1 Baldrake, and 1 Saronir. Or not Saronir, 1 Druiswurm, sorry. Most of the time I'd end up cutting Saronir. But with how impactful the Bystial monsters themselves are currently, and just the way that this deck cannot normally play most hand traps, right? Like, you can't really take advantage of cards like Effect Veiler or Imperm, or even board breakers such as like Talents as effectively. So being able to rely on something like Bystials in a Fiendsmith heavy format is always going to be greatly appreciated. And not to mention that the deck already naturally synergizes with the Lightsworn stuff too, right? As every Lightsworn card just happens to be a light monster, so these cards can be used as like hand traps. You can also use them not as like starters, but like as extenders to climb into your synchro plays. Or if you happen to play like the Fiendsmith engine, they're all level 6, right? So you have rank 6 plays there as well available to you. But yeah, the Bystials, they're so good currently. And in a deck like this, that's when like their potential is truly able to shine. Then For the other engine we're playing the Horus engine still. But as far as like the monsters go, we're just playing the 3 Imsety with the 1 Hapi. Nothing too crazy there. It's really straightforward stuff. I don't really enjoy playing any of the other one just because I feel like once these two hit the graveyard, you've basically like already set up your board or whatever. So we'd rather just not brick on the other guys. And then for the other monsters that just like are good in general, we have the 1 Mudora, the Sword Oracle, to help shuffle cards back because it's very easy to just go through our entire 40 card deck on turn 1. So in order to prevent our opponent from just passing back and making us lose the deck out, we can use something like Mudora, the Sword Oracle, to shuffle back our cards. And then that's not only even to like to mention that it's obviously like a fantastic card at helping you control your opponent's graveyard as well, or getting cards that you milled previously back into the deck, especially for the one of like spells and traps that are pretty important to this deck. Then we're also playing the 1 Starliege Seyfert. We don't really use the on-field effect to add dragons, but you can do something cute like normal Seyfert, send Dragonling, and then add a Dragonling. So that way you satisfy the condition to have a Lightsworn monster in the graveyard, and then you're also going to be able to activate your Dragonling's effect to be able to add a punishment dragon or whatever. Or if you already happen to have like a punishment dragon, you can send the punishment dragon and turn that brick into something useful like a Bystial Lubellion. Or you can add this Chaos Dragon Levianeer, which is just like another pseudo boss monster, I guess. But all 3 of its effects are really good whether you're going first or second, right? So you can either loop a card from your opponent's hand, you can reborn a monster from your graveyard, or you can destroy 2 cards on the field. And if this card resolves, like, your opponent is in such a bad position, especially with like the boards that this deck generally puts up. So yeah, really, really great addition to the pure, I say pure, but like to this Lightsworn deck. And with that, that's the monster lineup. And now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion. Now, as is always the case with the spells and traps, the amount that we play is basically abysmal compared to the monster lineup just because it takes up so many slots, right? So we typically only play like 5 to 10 spells and traps, and this time it's no different. But even so, we're going to be playing 3 Charge of the Light Brigade. You mill 3 cards and add any Lightsworn monster. Really straightforward, really strong. And that's it for the 3 ofs. And then for the 2 ofs, we're playing the 2 King Sarcophagus and the Walls of the Imperial Tomb. So I basically never played this card, and I just opted to try it out today. And I think it's fine. I don't know if I'd play it going into the future, but being able to activate something like this and then add a Imsety to your hand, as well as putting back a brick like Wulf or Felis, is pretty good in theory, right? And then when it's on the field, it's also treated as King Sarcophagus, but it just feels kind of unnecessary in most situations. So if I start cutting anything anywhere, it'd probably be with this one first. But yeah, as far as like, you basically just need to play these 2 for sure if you want to play the Horus engine, and then this one's just like a little bonus for consistency. And then for the other one ofs, the 1 Branded Regain, which is what we try to get off of Lubellion, and is one of those cards that we typically tend to mill pretty early. So if you have like a Mudora, this is one of the cards that you are typically going to be shuffling back. 1 Called by the Grave to maybe hopefully beat Dimension Shifter, but not really. And then the 1 Foolish Burial to be able to have a monster at any given moment. And with that, that's a spell lineup. We don't play any traps in this version. Normally you would see me play something like Lightsworn Aegis, right? But I just relegated it to the side deck instead. Much for the same reasoning why I don't play Dark Supremacy in the main deck, where it's only coming in if I can guarantee that I'm going to be able to go first. So yeah, it's perfectly fine like that. 40 cards like always, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now, when it comes to a Lightsworn deck like this, the extra deck is honestly pretty customizable for the most part, and I definitely had a little bit of trouble deciding which 15 cards I wanted to play, unlike with like the Fiendsmith version, because that one just has 6 cards that you auto-include every time, right? But that's not a bad thing, as there are so many great cards available to you through the extra deck in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game that it really does allow you to express yourself as a player, depending on like what cards you want to include, or depending on like what kind of situations you envision yourself to maybe enter or be faced with. So yeah, with that, we're just gonna be starting off with the Exceed monsters. So we're playing the 1 Minerva, the Exalted Lightsworn. You make this with 2 level 4s, you mill 3 cards. If you get any Lightsworns, you get to draw for each one. So just like, you know, just a general good consistency card. And then we're also playing the 1 number 60 dugares, the Timeless, which it's basically Minerva, right? Except instead of milling, you're drawing 2, then discarding a card. And you have the added bonus of being able to potentially reborn a monster or double the attack of something else if you're trying to go for like game after getting hand trapped to infinity and beyond. But even so, they're both really solid. But if I'm being honest, I typically go into dugares a little bit more frequently, just because Minerva really shines when you know you have a lot of Lightsworn cards in your graveyard. But if you access this later in your combo, you're just milling 3 cards, even though you've already burned through most of your Lightsworns, right? So making something like dugares would be a little bit more beneficial at times, but it really is like a case-by-case basis depending on what you need. Then for the rank 8s, we're playing the Zombie Vampire to be able to mill 4 more cards from both players' decks and then special summon a monster. And lastly, we're playing the number 90 Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, as this deck plays so many different level 8s that it's very easy to just summon this and then have like a negate for protection against cards like Nibiru or whatever, right? So yeah, I feel like that's perfectly fine. There are some other rank 4s that I would like to play, like Abyss Dweller, Baguska, etc. But I'm perfectly fine with just these 4 being in the main extra deck. Then for the synchro monsters, we're playing Minerva, the Athenian Lightsworn, just to be able to, I guess, full combo, right? Because if this card hits the board, that basically means you're going to have 4 Lightsworn monsters in the graveyard to be able to banish and then mill 4 more cards. And then every single time you're also going to have the materials to set up like another potential synchro for a level 8 or exceed for like a level or rank 4, or you could even like synchro for a level 8 and then overlay both of them into a rank 8, such as your Zombie Vampire or your Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. Like this card just does so much for the deck. Then for the other level 8s, we're playing the 1 Red Dragon Archfiend, or Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend, as it's a dark dragon, so you can tribute it to special summon Lubellion from the grave, but it's also phenomenal at helping you just win in time because this deck takes a long time to play. So having something like this in the extra deck as like a secret weapon is pretty solid. Then we have Sideframe Lord Omega because we can hand loop our opponent for 2 to 3 cards just off of this card, and this next one, Bystial Dissipator, which we'll go more into detail when we get to that. But yeah, Omega being able to rip your opponent's hand away, shuffle back, or not shuffle back, but put banished cards back into the graveyard to be able to reuse cards like Mudora or Starliege Seyfert is pretty solid. And then if it's in the graveyard, you can shuffle this card back plus 1 other card in the graveyard. So yeah, just like the amount of versatility that this card offers you is pretty unmatched in my opinion. Then for the level 12s, we're playing the Bystial Dissipator, which gives you like a pseudo negate kind of, as it allows you to shuffle back banished lights and darks from your banished zone and your opponent's banished zone, and then depending on where it's from, you either get to destroy a monster that activates its effect or negate that monster's effect. And it's also a free reborn for basically anything in your banished zone that happens to be a light or dark, right? So yeah, like you have like a negate card in the form of this that can also just generate free resources. And if you happen to have like branded regained in your graveyard, it's also like a 3500 wall that your opponent has to get through twice potentially. So yeah, this card's a little pretty silly and good. That came out wrong, but you guys get the idea, right? Then for the final level 12 synchro, Chaos Angel, because Chaos Angel is broken. Then that's it for the synchros. And then for the links, we're playing the 1 Fiendsmith Requiem. We don't play the Fiendsmith engine, but that doesn't mean we can't play this card, as it's there for those hands where you open up Weiss and Dragonling as your only Lightsworn targets. So what you do is you normal summon the Weiss, you link off into this, and then boom, you finally have Lightsworn monsters in your graveyard to be able to take advantage of Dragonling. So that's literally all it's there for. If you don't need it, then you don't make it. Simple as that. Then for the other links, we're playing the IP Masquerena, which is always just going to go into the SP Little Knight. And we're also playing the Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres because this is basically a Dragonlink deck, right? We play so many Bystials. We're just replacing the Rockets with Lightsworns for the most part. So this card, Dragonling, Punishment Dragon, Chaos Dragon Levianeer, all the Bystials, and even this one, Saryuja Skull Dread, happens to be a dragon. So we have so many different ways to make this card. And then when we tribute it to bounce a card, we also play so many dragons that we can bring out from our deck. So yeah, this card, pretty good. Then the Saryuja, this deck is constantly finding its board filled with a bunch of monsters that you just want to get rid of. So being able to link those cards all off into Saryuja, then draw 4, and then put your 3 bad cards at the bottom of the deck does advance your game plan a lot. And then not to mention that all its other effects are also pretty solid too, right? Like you get a free special summon from your hand if a monster is summoned to a zone it points to, it gains 300 attack. And it's just like a general nuisance to deal with. So if this card comes down and resolves, the game's basically just over at that point for most situations. And even if like you're not in a commanding position, those 4 cards that you draw can just completely turn the tides of the game as well. So yeah, like this card, it does so much for the deck. And then for the final card that we're playing, we're just playing the 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World because there are some boards that we just cannot get over by battling. So having an out to those unbeatable towers like monsters is always a general solid idea to have in a deck like this. And with that, that's the Lightsworn deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, see ya.